The Mets with a huge win yesterday in St. Louis. And Sean Manaea came up with a big-time pitching performance. That's all you can say. You can't say enough about it. Because Sunday was the kind of loss that the Mets had to the Angels where things could start to spiral out of control. Right? You lost 2 out of 3 to a bad Angels team. You had J.D. Martinez hit a big grand slam, his second grand slam in about 2 weeks. You take a 4-2 lead, and then the bullpen, which I told you there's big losses left in this bullpen, and this was one of them, gives up a 3-run homer, just a back-breaking 3-run homer, and you lose the game 5-4. And you were starting to slip in the wild card standings. They lose that game. They're 2.5 out of the wild card standings yesterday. They lost on Sunday. They were a game and a half out. They're still a game and a half out, but you feel much, much better today after that 6-0 win yesterday, and it was all Sean Manaea. 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, 6 hits. He scattered the 6 hits. He was brilliant yesterday. And you know what? This is multiple good starts now. This is like 3 out of 4 good starts out of Sean Manaea. And, I mean, listen, the Mets, the way they pieced together this pitching staff this year is incredible. Now, the bullpen is a whole nother entity. That remains to be a problem. And I'm telling you, they still have big losses in them. And it could cost them a playoff spot. The bullpen is just completely unreliable. And I know they got Stanek, who came in and pitched a good inning yesterday, and they got a little help in it. But you cannot give up a 3-run homer in that situation to the Angels on Sunday and lose that game after you get a J.D. Martinez grand slam to take the lead. Because the Mets were dead in the water at down 2-0. They couldn't get anything going. They were just getting beat. They couldn't get any kind of rally going, and then they load the bases. J.D. Martinez hits a big grand slam. They have a 4-2 lead. You figure, okay, now they're going to be okay. They're going to cruise to the win, take 2 out of 3, and be okay. And they and the bullpen gives up a 3-run homer, and they lose the game. And that's the kind of loss that in the past, this Mets team, it would just spiral out of control, and they go and lose 5 of 6, and it would just, it would crush the season. But they had Sean Manaea come in yesterday in a big game in St. Louis, a 1-day stop, 1-game stop, a makeup game. And he came in and he just shut down the Cardinals, completely shut down the Cardinals. You had McNeil got a home run. You had Tyrone Taylor with a bases clearing double. And the Mets win it 6-0. But the story yesterday was absolutely Sean Manaea. And that could be a season saving type of performance. Because for him to come in there in a game that the Mets just needed to win. Because coming out of L.A., you just felt terrible. You lost 2 of 3 to a bad Angels team. Things were starting to slip. You were 2 weeks ago, the Mets were in the first wild card ahead of the Braves. After that Angels loss, they were a game and a half out of the last wild card spot. And then if they lose yesterday, they'd be 2.5 out. They're still a game and a half out, but you feel much better now going into Colorado. A bad Colorado team, 30 games under 500, really nothing to play for. And you should be, now we said the same thing going into the Angels series, you should be able to take care of business. And I would be going for the sweep here, but you take 2 out of 3, and then you go move it on to Seattle. So, listen, and Severino's got to come up big tonight. The Mets have got to rely. They pieced together this staff this year with just kind of like a bunch of no names. Without their ace, they got 5 innings all year out of their ace Senga. And they've pieced it together, and Manaea has been a diamond in the rough here, at least his last 5 starts. He's been incredible. The last 2 starts, he's pitched 14 innings. He's given up no runs. He's walked 1. He has 14 strikeouts. The last 2 starts have just been huge for Sean Manaea. And give Tyrone Taylor credit, coming in, getting that double down the line, a little opposite field, good piece of hitting, went with the ball. and he cleared the bases, and that broke the game wide open. They added on a McNeil home run, and they win 6-0. Now that part of the trip is over. Like I said, a lot of people complaining about the travel and what they had to do. It is what it is. The game got canceled. Yesterday was the only day, that common day, that the Mets and the Cardinals both had off. They had to play the game. And the Mets went in there and took care of business, and it was important. And now you see that you're starting to sort out the wild card. Okay, you got 4 teams basically going for 3 spots, and you have teams like the Pirates and the Cardinals are starting to fade a little bit. They're 4 games behind the 3rd wild card spot. The Mets a game and a half behind the Padres, and then you got Arizona in there, and you got the Braves. Forget about the division. Don't even bother looking at the division. That's an outside. The Phillies are going to get their act together. They're going to win this division. It's 4 teams vying for 3 spots right now, and it's the Braves. If you look at it here, let me look at it. It's the Braves, the Diamondbacks, San Diego, and the Mets. The Mets are the outlier now. They're on the outside looking in. They're a game and a half behind the Padres, who are tied with Arizona, who are tied with the Braves. They're all 3 tied. So the Mets are a game and a half out of the last wild card spot. They're also a game and a half out of the first wild card spot. And now you play 3 games against a bad Rockies team, and you can't slip up. You cannot slip up, because this thing's going to come right down to the wire. Every game is going to matter, and you're going to be kicking yourself at the end of September if you're a game out of the playoffs because you lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels, and then you lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies. So you have to go in there and take these games seriously and take care of business, and then go on to Seattle. You cannot overlook teams. Listen, these bad teams now have a bunch of kids on them. Yes, they're not as talented, they're not as good, but they're playing for their baseball lives, right? They're trying to make it. They're trying to make a name for themselves. Get on the team next year. Get themselves a contract. Stay in the big leagues. And there's a lot to be said for that. And these teams this time of year really become spoilers. And you can't let that happen if you're the Mets. So tonight you got Severino going 7-4. He's coming off a bad start last time, right? He had a bad start in the finale of the homestand against the Twins. He only lasted 2 and a third innings. Gave up like 7 runs. The Twins were knocking him all over the ballpark. He's got to be better today. Then tomorrow you got Blackburn, who was outstanding in his first start. Better than you could ever imagine. And you're not going to get that, because that was like an ace performance. You're not going to get that. But if he could be decent, if he could just be, 6 innings, 2 runs, the Mets offense is good enough where if they're clicking, they're going to be that. They're going to compete in any game. They don't need the shutouts like they got yesterday with Manaea. Because look, they put up 6 runs. He could have gave up 3 runs. Now you take it, but they don't absolutely have to have it, because they could out hit a so-so start. And then so Blackburn tomorrow, and then you got Peterson, who's also been very good lately. I mean, between Peterson, Severino, who's been good, who's the Mets' best starter for most of this season, and Manaea, they've really pieced it together. And give them credit. Give Peterson and Manaea all the credit in the world. I didn't think either one of them were this good. And Manaea's now hit a stride where he's been, he was DeGrom-like in these last 2 starts. So we'll see how it goes. Tonight is a big one, though. You want to get off on the right foot. The ball flies in Colorado. We all know the thin air, and Mets have a tendency to play these wild games, high-scoring games in Coors Field, where it's a 12-8 or a 15-13 game. The Mets have had a couple of those. The Mets opened up Coors Field, its very first game, with a wild one on opening day back in whatever year it was, 98, 97, where Dante Bichette ended it in the 15th inning on a wild, a long home run. That's how Coors Field opened. So the Mets have a history of playing games like that. and they're they're right in the thick of it. Right, the rest of the season now is going to be about this playoff race and this team, and whether or not they can make it. I'm telling you, it's going to come down to the very last day. It's going to come down to those last series, the last couple games. You're going to have the probably 4 teams vying for 3 spots, all neck and neck. Because when you look at it now, you look at St. Louis has fallen off their 4 back. Pittsburgh has hit a little rough patch. They're only a game over 500. They're 4 back. The Giants are 4.5 back, and then the Reds are falling out of it at 6.5 back. So you got to get 2 out of 3 here. You got Severino, Blackburn, and then Peterson are your 3 pitchers, and then you move on to Seattle. But yesterday was huge. That was a huge clutch pitching performance, because normally what happens with the Mets is they lose a game like Sunday, and then they just fall apart. And again, I'm going to give the manager credit, because he's done a hell of a job keeping everything together. He's not loud. You don't hear much from him. He doesn't make, he doesn't splash the back pages with quotes, but he keeps this team grounded. And when they need a big win in a big spot, they've gotten it this year. And then the rest of the way, they've just been wildly inconsistent, up and down, up and down. But when they've needed a big performance or a big spot, he put Tyrone Taylor in there. He cleared the bases. You got Manaea throwing back-to-back 7-inning shutouts. You got Peterson pitching well. Severino was the Mets' best pitcher for 3/4 of this season so far. And he needs to rebound. He cannot come out and have a performance like he had last week at Citi Field against the Twins. You can't come out and give up 7 runs in the first couple innings. He's got to pitch well tonight. These are big games now. The Mets have, like we said, they gave us a season. You're now in August, and you're playing big games against teams that you should beat. I mean, the Rockies are a bad team. They're 30 games under 500. So that's what's going on there. We'll see. You hope that now, yesterday, they can kind of springboard off of yesterday's performance and get the confidence back, and not just kind of let this thing spiral out of control, because in previous years, that's what happens. As a Mets fan, I know, if you're a Mets fan, that a loss like Sunday, when you lose 2 out of 3 and you lose the 3rd game of the rubber match like they did, things just spiral out of control, especially on the West Coast. That's why I say the West Coast is where Mets seasons go to die. And hopefully yesterday's performance by Sean Manaea and the offense, and McNeil's playing well since the All-Star break. He's been a completely different player. Give him credit for that. He's no matter what, he's going to end up with a bad season. It's not going to be a good season for McNeil. But he has redeemed a little bit of credibility here, because he just went to the tank. He was terrible. He's redeemed some credibility here in this second half. He's hit with some power. He's got double-digit home runs now. Alvarez with 2 hits is another thing to keep your eye on, because if Alvarez can come out of this slump and start hitting, the Mets have a very potent offense. One of the better offenses in the National League. And, you have to win these games. The Mets play a lot of road games here in August. They go on this long trip, then they go home for a 9-game homestand, and then right back out west. So this is going to be a test. August is going to be a test for the Mets, and you're going to find out what this team's made of. And I think you saw a good piece of it yesterday when Sean and I went out there and threw 7 shutout innings against the Cardinals, who were also fighting for their lives. That game was just as big, probably bigger, for the Cardinals. And, they didn't play well. But they also got, Manaea had them on the ropes all day. And that's what good pitching will do. And that's why pitching is so important. Now, when the Mets get into the playoffs, I don't know what they're going to do with the pitching. I don't know if you don't even know. I couldn't even tell you who would start game 1. Right? I mean, maybe right now it would probably be Manaea. But 2-3 weeks ago, you could have made a case for Severino. You could have made a case for Peterson. So I don't know if this team's really built for a deep run into the playoffs, but you would like to get there, especially in a season where You had no expectations. And they've kind of surprised you. I mean, look at last year. Last year, you had 2 Hall of Famers at the top of the rotation, and it was garbage. This year, you're living on Sean Manaea, Peterson, Blackburn, and Severino. Those are not names like Verlander and Scherzer. But they've somehow pieced it together, and the managers held things together, and their offense is good enough where they can out-hit a bad pitching performance. And tonight, in a place like Colorado, you could really score a lot of runs. And the Mets really should do that, and hopefully they will. And they could, take 2 out of 3, maybe, hopefully get a sweep. It's tough to sweep. It's tough to sweep series against any team. They're getting paid too. It's just human nature. You kind of let up in the third game. You saw it with the Twins. They fell behind. It's a getaway day. They're like that getaway day. Mets fell behind, and that was it. They just mailed it in against the Twins. You can't do that anymore with these games. Now that you're in a pennant race and you are right there, 4 teams going for 3 spots, you can't give games away. And the Mets gave away Sunday. And it's a bullpen again, and it's a crush. But bullpens that give it when you have a bad bullpen, and the Mets still don't have a good bullpen. They have a below average bullpen. But when you have a bullpen and it gives up and it loses games like that, and I've said it all year, it is just back-breaking losses. Like just a back-breaking 3-run homer on Sunday against the Mets, that kills you. And I think this bullpen has a couple more of those in them. I really do. I don't trust any bullpen, but the Mets bullpen, they have a couple more in these. They have a couple more of those in them this year. And you just hope they don't come at the wrong time. And you hope that they can out-hit a bad bullpen. And then you deal with it with whoever you're going to play when you get there. And you see if you could just, catch lightning in a bottle and get hot at the right time. So that's what's going on with the Mets. Okay, so here's what's going on with the Yankees. They are postponed tonight. They've canceled the game already. I guess, listen, we always get on them for making everybody go to the ballpark, and then it rains, and they make them sit there for 3 hours, and then they cancel it, so we get on them. So I'm not going to get on them too bad because it is supposed to rain. And they're going to play a traditional doubleheader tomorrow, starting at, I believe it's 4 o'clock. Let's see. They're going to play, 4:05, a traditional single admission doubleheader, Yankees and Angels. I don't know if they're going to get that in either. It's supposed to be worse tomorrow. But they obviously have seen something with the weather where they're not going to be able to get this in. The sun's out right now. It's, 4:40, and they have canceled the game. So, we'll, like I said, I'm not going to get on them too bad with this because if it doesn't rain, then we're going to kill them. So they better hope it rains. But we don't always get on them when they make everybody go to the ballpark. Then it rains. Then they wait around for 3 hours, and then they cancel it. So let's wait and see. Put this on hold before we kill the Yankees for canceling the game. So Yankees rained out. Mets with a big one tonight in Colorado. They're a game and a half out of the wild card. The Braves, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres are all sitting just ahead of them. And then there's a little bit of a gap, and you get to the Pirates and the Giants and the Reds a little bit further back. So tonight, 8:40 SNY, the Mets in Colorado to start a 3-game series. Severino against Freeland. Let's see if they can do it. Tomorrow, Blackburn goes. Let's see if he could match his brilliant start in his first game as a Met. But yesterday, give Sean Manaea credit, and he might have saved your season. And he might have just stopped things from spiraling out of control because a loss like Sunday will spiral things out of control. And especially for the Mets. And any Mets fan out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not a Mets fan, you might not know. But if you know, you know. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you for watching, everybody. Don't forget, you can always find us at lockedupsports.net. We are also anywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe so we know you're here. Leave us a rating so we know what you like. And write a review so we know what we can do better. So, from the Brian Gunzel Studios, enjoy the game tonight, everybody. I'm Bob Walters. See ya.